Should you be reading the Fire and Blood book by George R.R. Martin as well as watching House of the Dragon? We are going to discuss in this video. Let's go. So if, like me, you are enjoying the House of the Dragon show right now and you just want to know more and more about the future of the story, see, I'm one of those people who I like spoilers. I'll be honest with you. Doesn't bother me about telling other people about them, but I need to know. I'm one of those people that need to know what's coming. I don't like surprises very much, so I always want to know what's coming. So I will go around and I will read Fire and Blood because I want to know what's going to happen. And I do. I've read, Dance of the Dragons as well. I've read all the Game of Thrones books and this book. And, I just couldn't wait for the show to come out. So I needed to know. That's probably why I'm so desperate for Winds of Winter. But I know a lot of people probably asking this question when the show started: should I read the book first? And now we're about halfway into the show. You probably might be asking yourself, should I go and read this book now before the show ends so I can get an idea of where the show is going? Now, as you can see, this book is absolutely huge. It's a massive book. What I love about this book, I'll be honest with you, is look, there's a lot of pictures and stuff in there, so it's a beautiful book. It's not that expensive, but should you be reading it and watching this show? Me personally, I would say no. The answer to that is 100% no. And I got a load of reasons as to why you shouldn't. And here they are. So the first reason, if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, you know damn well that in Game of Thrones, they didn't exactly stick to the book. For example, in Game of Thrones, they got to the ending, but George R. Martin hasn't actually written an ending for a Game of Thrones story yet. So HBO made up their own ending, not George R. R. Martin's ending, which is probably what's making it a bit more difficult for him to come up with an ending, because he is trying to make sure he doesn't do an ending that's anything like theirs. So in the original show, they changed a few things, and I'm going to take you through now all those things that they changed from the books. So in the original show, when it starts off, in the books, it's actually 14 years since Robert's rebellion. But in the TV show, they actually make it 17 years. And now apparently the reasoning behind that was basically to make the kids a bit older. See, in Game of Thrones show, when it starts off, Daenerys Targaryen is actually 16, but in the books at the time, she was 13. And I'm assuming they didn't like the idea of marrying a 13-year-old off to this big, muscly, foreign-looking dude, which you can understand. Now, in the books, Robb Stark, so you might remember the Red Wedding, yeah? So in the books, Robb Stark actually doesn't marry that girl. The girl in the TV show is Talisa Maguire, and she's a completely HBO-made character. She's not the actual character from the book. The woman that he marries in the books, he actually marries a nurse called Jane Westerling. So they completely just removed her and created a whole new character for the TV show, which is something they did quite frequently. Now, in a TV show, you may remember when Arya becomes the cupbearer for Tywin. But in the book, she's not actually the cupbearer for Tywin. She's the cupbearer for Lord Bolton. Now, you may remember the Battle of the Bastards. Yet he's the Bolton son. Yes, his father is who she was the cupbearer for. But in the TV show, they switched it up to make her the cupbearer for Tywin Lannister, because it'd be much more tense and it was much more gripping seeing her around him. And I'm very surprised that he didn't figure out who she was a lot quicker. Now in the books, see Theon Greyjoy. Now in the books, Theon Greyjoy, when he takes over Winterfell to become the Lord of Winterfell, he's actually helped out by a prisoner called Reek. Now that may sound familiar. In the books, Reek is actually Ramsay Bolton. As you may remember, in the TV show, Theon basically becomes Ramsay's prisoner, and Ramsay calls him Reek, which is quite hilarious. I quickly just flipped it on his head. But yeah, another thing that they changed from the book. So the Red Wedding, we're back at the Red Wedding again. And in the Red Wedding, and you may remember, his bride and his mum and himself were all killed at the Red Wedding. But in the actual books, his bride, Jane, who isn't the bride on the TV show, she's not actually there, so she doesn't get killed in the brutal way that she does on the TV show, which is just another example of things that they changed in the TV show. So you may remember in Game of Thrones when Cersei and Jaime get it on next to their dead son's corpse. In the TV show, they kind of insinuate that Jaime's actually raped Cersei, but in the books, it's not that way at all. In the books, it's actually very consensual, but I'm assuming they wanted to make it more dramatic for TV to make it more a deeper story. Another big one that I'm so surprised it didn't do, I literally thought at the time they were going to do it, was Lady Stoneheart, aka Catelyn Stark. but they didn't do it. Lady Stoneheart is basically like a zombified White Walker type version of Caitlyn, who comes back from the dead. And on the TV show, I think a lot of us thought they were going to do it, and they literally did not do it at all. They didn't even hint towards it, which I thought was kind of shocking. I'm kind of sad that they didn't do it, because it would have been very interesting to see, don't you think? So as you can see, Game of Thrones, HBO's Game of Thrones literally had a host of things from the books that they changed for the TV show. So this is why I don't think it's essential for anyone to read a Fire and Blood book, because at the end of the day, there is no guarantee that anything in that book is going to be on a TV show. They can always change anything if it seems not as interesting in the book. They'll try and make it more interesting on a TV show. Like, for example, Brandon Stark. Brandon Stark in the book, his time, you know, when he couldn't walk, was incredibly boring and dull, and it was not worth talking about. On a TV show, they tried to make it more interesting and tried to dig deeper into the whole exploration time when he was with that young kid from Love Actually. They tried to make it more interesting, but in the book, let's be honest, it was dead. It was boring. It was a part that you tried to skip through as quick as possible, tried to read really, really fast, because it wasn't that interesting. But on a TV show, they changed a few things. They added Holdor's backstory in there. They added so many extra bits in there to make it more interesting. And on the TV show of House of the Dragon, they are not going to stick directly to the books. So if you're not aware and you've lived under a rock and you don't remember much from Game of Thrones, Rhaenyra Targaryen's ending literally comes from Aegon. She gets eaten or burnt alive, I can't remember which one, by a dragon in front of her son during the Dance of the Dragons, the Targaryen Civil War, and that is the end of her. Aegon doesn't live for much longer after that anyway. I mean, Aegon's on the throne for all of about 2 years. So he's not king for very long at all. His time is very short. I mean, from the next, I think it's like the next 30 to 40 years of the Targaryen rule, there are so many different rulers. It's just ridiculous. But I personally don't think that we're going to see Rhaenyra die like that. I think there's a chance they might not kill her for ages. They might change that part of the story because they want their new, you know, Daenerys Targaryen type of character, and there's not really much to replace her. Because pretty much, once Rhaenyra's gone, it's just a lot of male Targaryens, other than Alicent Hightower's daughter. So, you know, I don't think they're going to want to get rid of one of the very few strong female characters they got, unless they're intending to make Alicent more like Cersei, which a lot of people thought from episode 6 that she was a lot like Cersei in it. I didn't. I actually thought she was just a bit more confident, because the younger version of Alicent, let's be honest, she was very timid. So this version was complete opposite, because she's older now. So I like seeing that, but we're going to see which direction she's really going to go in. But yeah, that's my opinion, guys. If you want to pick up this book, I mean, it's a beautiful book. You know, George R. R. Martin did a good job writing this book. There are a lot of pictures in this book. As you can see, you know, there are so many pictures in this book, which I think is really good, because of the other ones, you don't really get to see much animation in it. It's a lot more words. I mean, look, another beautiful picture there, if you can see that. Here you go. I mean, I think I got it for $12.99 on Amazon. So you can go and check it out on Amazon. You just search Game of Thrones book and it will be the top book up there. It won't show you the Song of Ice and Fire books. But yeah, you don't need to read the books. If you didn't start reading it before the show started, don't start now. And don't start for season 2 either. There is no point in reading the book for this show. If you want to read the book, go ahead and read the book. But don't read it because you feel you need to. Read it because you want to. Like, for example, the best example I can give for that is The Rings of Power. Tolkien fans do not like that show. There's a reason for it. They know the lore. They know the history of those characters. They know it inside and out. So when you start changing things or adapting things to your own vision, fans ain't gonna like it because they got their idea of what it already is. So it's kind of good for Rings of Power to go in blind and not know much about Tolkien's work and then enjoy the show if you can. But if you know the work, you're gonna find it less likely to enjoy it. But I don't think the changes HBO have made for Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, they're not as extreme. So you can read the books and still enjoy this shit. But anyway, guys, if you did like this video, please click on that like button. If you didn't, thank you for watching anyway. And I will see you guys in the next video. And remember, keep enjoying House of Dragon, man. One of the best shows on TV right now. See you guys later.